A guy who spent his entire career teaching people how to cook, from Cook's Magazine, Cook's Illustrated, Cook's Country, to America's Test Kitchen, the public media company behind the eponymous television show, radio show, and countless cookbooks. Back in 2016, Christopher Kimball left the Test Kitchen to start his latest venture, Milk Street, which just started the third season of its run, Milk Street Television. He recently joined me to talk about it. Chris, thanks for being here. Nice to see you.
My pleasure.
So if someone approached you who didn't know who you were or what you did, and they said, what do you do for a living? I assume you'd say, I build empires. Is that what you would say? You do, isn't that
That's exactly what I'd say.
I figured. That's what. So before we get to the show, let's talk about the current empire. Milk Street has its tentacles into so many different things. It's unbelievable. Tell us what a few of those things are.
We have an actual brick-and-mortar cooking school. We have an online cooking school. We have a magazine. We have cookbooks. We have a television show, a public television, of course. We have a public radio show, a weekly show. Digital space, of course, like everybody else. I mean, in this day and age with media, you have to be everywhere or you're nowhere.
Well, let's talk TV since we're on TV. I'm not a great cook at all, but I watch a ton of food and cooking shows of all different kinds. Some of them travel around the world. Some stay home and cook. Christopher Kimball's Milk Street TV does both. Explain how you came up with the concept.
My cooking had changed a few years ago, and the cooking had changed because people around the world were taking what we can from cuisines around the world and bringing it back here and adapting it, creating something new. It's sort of like the music business or the fashion business, right? It's this amalgam. So the only way to do that right is to go there, cook with the people in their homes, mostly, find out sort of authentically how it works, and then learn from them and bring that back here. Without going there, I can't do it here. I got to really see it firsthand.
What's your thought process during that transition when you do the thing in the land in which it was created, and then you bring it back here? What are you thinking when you're transitioning that recipe or that thing that you're making? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you're trying to find the point of the recipe. What is it that really makes that recipe special? And so it's not so much using the fenugreek, that they have in Galilee or something, or the sumac they might put into something. It's what's the concept? What are the flavor combinations that make this work? You're using cinnamon and allspice in a savory dish. Okay, well, that's an idea. It's all about how they think about cooking. That's what you bring back, not necessarily the exact recipe.
Will you be offended if I tell you I see your show as a throwback kind of show? I mean, it's not a speed contest, which sometimes I like. It's not a food challenge. It's sort of a throwback kind of thing. Is that okay to say, or does that offend you?
I'm definitely throwback.
No, but
no, it's a good thing.
I mean that in a complimentary way.
I take, you know what? The best show ever was Julia, and so it was called Stand and Cook. That's what I do, a Stand and Cook show. But we try to also bring it to the places around the world to sort of intro that. But people always go, well, Stand and Cook's over. It's all going to be a competition show. It'll be Chopped. It'll be Top Chef. Yeah, well, maybe, but I think there's a need for people to get to know you. I mean, one of the great things about public media is they get to know you over the years. And to teach people how to cook. People still want to know how to cook, so I think it works great.
So, by the way, I hadn't even thought to ask you about Julia Child, but I mean, obviously there's a GBH aura surrounding her, surrounding you. Do you think about her when you're doing your stuff?
I think about her all the time.
How so?
Well, she was a more interesting person you might get from her show. She was competitive. I mean, if you went over and cooked with her, she'd give you a leg of lamb and say, could you carve it?
How intimidating is that, was it?
It was the only thing that was intimidating was she called me up once when I first got to Boston around 1991. And I thought it was a joke. Somebody was, Julia. So I thought it was her. She said, come over, cook dinner. So I went over, and she opened her back door that leads right into the kitchen. And she was filling the frame. That was a little intimidating. But then she said, asked me to shuck some oysters. I, cut my finger. I opened 2 oysters in 15 minutes, made a complete mess out of it. And I said, look, I'll drink the wine. You shuck the oysters.
But you do think of her when you're doing something.
Well, you know why? Because Julia was a teacher. She was not about the money. She wasn't about the fame. She wasn't a celebrity chef. She wouldn't even think of herself as a chef. She was a cook. She deeply wanted to understand how to cook and how to teach people how to cook, and it was a public service. And now in today's media world, that's not necessarily top of mind for a lot of people. So she was the real deal, and she was, the great story about her was she was supposed to promote a wine. At the end of the segment, she took out a can of Budweiser, and you just go like,
Well, what's perfect? The first time I met her at the dumpiest supermarket in Cambridge, a Star Market, that you almost don't want to go into. So I hope you can answer one of the big questions about you in America, and it's about, well, first of all, Christopher Kimball as this.
Flip it over like that, right? Not so good.
And Christopher Kimball as this.
So now the oil is just starting to smoke. I'll take it off the heat. We're going to add a little bit of garlic to this and just cook it for maybe 20 or 30 seconds.
Okay, so how do you decide when you are bow tie wearing and when you are not bow tie wearing? What goes into the thinking?
If I'm making scallion pancakes in a little tiny place in Taipei, I'm not wearing a bow tie. If I'm cooking at our main studio in Boston, I would wear a bow tie. I mean, that was a great segment because that woman was 80 years old. She's been making those pancakes for 40 years. And she tried to teach me, and she just got very upset. All wrong, all wrong. Oh, no, no, no. And I tried to show her how to make pie pastry. That didn't work out. But that's fun because, I spent 2 hours with her, and she spoke Mandarin. We couldn't talk to each other, but we could.
By the way, you went to Lebanon with the guy who owns one of the best restaurants a block from my house, Muna. It's unbelievable, Mohammed. So Mexico, I'm talking about the first few episodes this season. Lebanon, Italy, Paris. What's the common thread? Is there a common thread?
The common thread is to go somewhere and find out what's really going on. I was just in Tel Aviv, and everyone was talking about the great Thai food. And then I went to a famous hummus place, and they made Mexican hummus, or they made Balkan hummus. I mean, it's never what you think. So the thread is you went to Paris, and the guy's making great gnocchi. He's a guy from Australia. He used to cook in London. Now he's making gnocchi in Paris. That's the new Paris, So what's going on in those countries is not archetypal. It's not what you saw in the cookbooks from the 60s and 70s. It's totally different. And that's the fun, and that's what you want to bring back.
Well, you convey it pretty well. So before you go, getting back to empire building, so people either know you from Cook's Magazine or Cook's Illustrated or America's Test Kitchen. How much time do you want to spend on the settlement of litigation? You want to spend some time on it?
I'd love to spend a couple hours.
Hours on that thing?
Yeah, please ask me.
Now to Milk Street. So is there another act, or are you in the right place for you?
I think I got my hands full. Now, this is something that's going to take a long time to build out because we're going all over the world. It's all about the people. It's always about the people because they teach you so much and they welcome you into their home and they're generous. And I now know how little I know.
Well, I have to say we're all jealous. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Great to see you.
Pleasure.
You can watch new episodes of Milk Street Kitchen on Saturdays right here on WGBH. For more information, head to 177milkstreet.com.